is up, guys? EJ here, back with another video, and today it's going to be my weekly movie review roundup, episode 22, I believe. So yeah, I've only got 4 movies to talk about this week. The few movies I had on my Netflix queue, all of them are on short wait or very long wait. Especially still waiting to watch Legend, for example, but it's been on short wait for a long time on my queue, so I only got to see 4 movies this week. So yeah, starting off with last Tuesday, April 26th, I watched Point Break, the remake, of course, of the 1991 film by Catherine Bigelow. Yeah, this film, directed by Erickson Cole. Erickson Core, that sounds like a made-up name, to be honest. Yeah, starring Luke Bracey and Edgar Ramirez. Luke Bracey plays Keanu Reeves' character from the original, Johnny Utah. He's a former extreme sports athlete who somehow winds up in the FBI. He's a young agent in the FBI, and there's been a string of crimes committed by a group of guys. These high-risk daredevil feats where they manage to steal money and or gold or something, and they give it to the poor, but they do it using very high-risk, extreme athletic feats. So Delroy Lindo, he plays the head sort of FBI agent. He tasks young Utah, Luke Bracey, with infiltrating this group of guys and find out if they're the ones behind the crimes. Ray Winstone sort of plays the Gary Busey character. He's like Utah's contact. He gets him in with this group of daredevils. Teresa Palmer is in the movie as well, looking very good, I gotta say. But that's about as good as this movie gets, because at least at the heart of the original Point Break, it wasn't about all this high-risk daredevil stuff that Patrick Swayze, who of course played Bodhi, in this film Edgar Ramirez plays Bodhi. It wasn't about all that kind of stuff. It was at the core of Point Break. It was still a police investigation into the bank robberies that happened in that film, and Keanu Reeves was a cop trying to bring him down with the help of Gary Busey. This film is not really about that at all. It's about this elusive 8, these feats of great athletic, extreme strength, which are sort of man versus nature. They have all these special names for these 8 athletic feats that these guys are trying to attempt, which some guy before them attempted, some mysterious guy that they talk about in the movie. And the whole film is basically just set up for a bunch of these athletic, high extreme feats. Like at one point they're up in the Alps in Europe, and those like bat suits, they jump off the mountain and fly down through the mountains. And then towards the end of the film, there's one where they climb Angel Falls, the world's tallest waterfall in Venezuela. They free rock climb the face of that waterfall using no ropes, no supports, any of that kind of stuff. That's the only good thing about this movie, is there's some impressive looking stunts. There's a big wave surfing scene early on in the film as well. But yeah, the film is really more about this elusive 8 of athletic, high endurance, extreme athletic events, if you like, where man takes on nature, and the whole investigation into the crimes is sort of in the background, because these guys really aren't criminals. They're like I said, the couple times they steal money, they give it to the poor right away, and another point they blow up some mine, some gold mine or whatever, sort of rebelling against the corporate world. So yeah, it's not a very good film. There's some impressive looking stunts, but I didn't like the whole look of the film too. It seems very washed out. I didn't like the whole look of the movie. I did like Teresa Palmer's brief appearance, and yeah, poor people like Delroy Lindo and Ray Winstone. They're just there to fill out the cast. But I was impressed with Luke Bracey as Utah or Edgar Ramirez as Bodhi. So Point Break from 2015, big disappointment. I gave a 5 out of 10. Alright guys, moving on to Thursday, April 28th, I watched Son of Saul. Yeah, winner of Best Foreign Film at this year's Academy Awards, a Hungarian movie, written and directed by Laszlo Nemes, starring, let me get this right, Geza Rohrig, set in 1944 in Auschwitz. Yeah, the infamous concentration camp. Geza Rohrig plays what's called a Sana Commando. These Jewish prisoners who worked inside the camp were prisoners themselves, but they worked in cleaning up after the fellow Jews were put to death in the gas chambers inside Auschwitz. They're there to clean up the bodies, to burn and incinerate the bodies, and take all the clothes, all the belongings, and gather all the stuff left over from all these hundreds of people that get shuffled into this room. They all get exterminated, and then these guys, like 50 of them, called Sana Commandos, they basically cleaned up after their fellow countrymen were all put to death. The film really focuses on Saul. At one point, a young boy sort of manages to survive the initial gassing, but he soon dies after that. And Saul believes that this young man, Saul Auslander, is the full name, believes that this young boy is his son. So throughout the rest of the movie, he looks for a rabbi to bury the child properly. He wants to bury the son, bury the young boy, and not have him just thrown onto a pile of bodies where he gets burned to death, or not to death, just incinerated. So throughout the movie, he's looking for a fellow prisoner who's a rabbi who can perform the last rites, etc. Yeah, it's a really tough movie to watch, but what's interesting about the movie is there's not very many wide shots. The film really is sort of focused on Geza. It's sort of just his face and his immediate surroundings, and the whole background is all blurry. So most of the movie you're spent like face to face with Saul, and you see him in these intimate conversations, these quiet little conversations he has with his fellow inmates, trying to find this rabbi, and he gets help from a doctor who's also a Jewish prisoner there. And meanwhile, in the background, all you hear and all you see faintly is the bodies, the sort of carnage that goes on behind them and around them. It's a really interesting film as far as the way it's shot. It sort of masks the sort of horror of the whole situation. Of course, terrible low light of the Holocaust in Auschwitz. Yeah, so you don't really see any graphic footage of what goes on around them, and I think that was kind of the whole point, why they focus solely on Saul and his immediate surroundings. You're like literally on his shoulder like the whole movie. It's really interesting in that respect. But it's a tough movie to watch. That goes without saying. You still get a real idea of what's happening. There's some really tough scenes. It's a really good performance by Geza Rohrig. Yeah, Son of Saul, very good film, very deserving of its Oscar win for Best Foreign Film. So Son of Saul, I gave a 7 out of 10. Alright, moving on to Friday, April 29th, I watched Taxi Driver. Martin Scorsese's classic from 1976, starring Robert De Niro and Jodie Foster. It was Jodie Foster week on, or it is Jodie Foster week on the Movie Reviewers 100. So I reviewed Taxi Driver um, for that channel. So obviously the video, my full review of Taxi Driver, will be in the link in the description. So check that out if you want to see it. But yeah, obviously great film. Robert De Niro is ex-Vietnam veteran, taxi cab driver in New York. Um, has a brief relationship with Sybil Shepherd that doesn't go well, and then he makes it his mission to save a young prostitute, played by very young Jodie Foster, who I believe was like 14 at the time the film was made. Yeah, just Scorsese classic, brilliant score by Bernard Herrmann. Um, yeah, so Taxi Driver from 1976. One of my favorite films of the 1970s. I gave a 10 out of 10. Alright guys, moving on. Last but not, and definitely least in this case, on Saturday, April 30th, I watched 50 Shades of Black. Yeah, of course, the parody movie of 50 Shades of Grey, directed by Michael Titus, and co-written and starring Marlon Wayans. Yeah, fucking terrible movie. Um, of course, follows the same plot of 50 Shades of Grey. Callie Hawk plays Hannah Still, a young college student who goes to interview a wealthy businessman, played by Marlon Wayans, Christian Black in this case instead of Christian Grey, who obviously has weird sexual preferences, which include a S&M room in his apartment, filled with leather chains and whips and all that kind of stuff. If you've seen 50 Shades of Grey, you know the plot line of that movie. So this film pretty much follows the exact same plot line of that film, but this movie is filled with horrible jokes about pissing and shitting and anal sex and whipping and all that kind of stuff. Really bad humor. I just hate these parody movies that the Wayans brothers have been making over the past decade or so, really since Scary Movie 1. We had all the Scary movies. I was not a fan of that franchise at all. And then you had each year, seemingly after that, each year we have a parody movie where they parody all the popular films of the past year or so, or popular culture in that time. So you had films like Epic Movie and Date Movie, stuff like that, and this film is pretty much just like that. But this might just be the worst of the bunch. Just hated it. Not a fan of Marlon Wayans at all. The girl in it, she's alright. She kind of does her best with the role as Hannah Steele. But beyond that, there's nothing here. I said last week when I watched, what was it, Norm of the North, that I might not see a worse film from 2016. Yeah, 50 Shades of Black came out this year as well. But that's pretty close. 50 Shades of Black, I'm not going to say much more about it, except that it was just as bad, if not more so, than Norm of the North. So 50 Shades of Black, I gave a 3 out of 10. So there you have it. Only 4 movies to talk about this week. Like I said, the stuff that's in my Netflix queue that I want to see. I've got like 4 or 5 films that are backed up, and they're all on the wait list. So I'm just getting a couple of new releases. At least I'm getting 3 movies. I got 2 today, new releases that came out today, and then 1's coming tomorrow. So I have 3 to watch this week, and hopefully that other stuff that's on the wait list will come later in the week. I really want to see Legend. I know guys have been commenting on my previous videos, when are you going to see Legend? Well, that's one I really want to see, and it's on a wait list. So there you have it. 4 films only this week. Thank you for watching, as always, and until next time, I'll see you.
Bond. James Bond.